Hot Springs Village Inside Out is a closer look at the largest gated community in North America, spanning 26,000 acres in the Ouachita Mountains in south central Arkansas. Join me, Randy Cantrell, and some occasional guests as we explore Hot Springs Village Inside Out. Today's show is brought to you by Central Arkansas's favorite radio station, KVRE. Find them on the dial at 92.9 FM. Stream them live, kvre.com. HSV Inside Out is sponsored by Ike Eisenhower State Farm. Ike and his award-winning team have been serving the insurance needs of folks all around Hot Springs Village since 1998. Ike has qualified for State Farm's President's Club, Chairman's Circle, and Hot Springs Village Insurance Agent of the Year. Call Ike Eisenhower State Farm today at 501-984-4100. That's 501-984-4100. Find them online at ikeeisenhower.net. Call them today for all your insurance needs because, like a good neighbor, Ike Eisenhower State Farm is there. Also brought to you by Trademark HSV Real Estate. Located in the heart of Hot Springs Village, they are the fastest growing real estate office with over 30 agents and staff. Broker-owner Lori and Ken Henderson, along with the realtor and waterfront specialist Rick Marshall, are eager to share the special features of Hot Springs Village with you. For a complimentary relocation packet, call Ken and Lori at 501-276-3018. Call Rick Marshall at 501-601-RICK. They are Trademark HSV Real Estate. On June the 1st, 1970, John Cooper Sr., the developer, opened Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. This planned retirement golf lake community in south central Arkansas. On June the 1st, 2021, I launched HotSpringsVillageInsideOut.com, this online show mainly to address my curiosity, to answer the questions that I had as a person that had begun to visit this place back in September of 2018. I had no clue about the place and had a difficult time finding answers, and so I just set out to satisfy my own curiosity, and along the way, you arrived. And man, I am so happy that you're here. Thank you for clicking play, and greatly appreciate you being part of our group and our family here. I really didn't have any idea who would watch or listen to the show when we started back in June of 2021. But along the way, I very quickly discovered that our audience were made up largely of those of you who have not yet retired, but you're planning to, and you're looking for the place to retire to. I also realized that there was a second group of you, and that is those of you that had retired. Maybe you'd sold the home place, maybe not, but you're looking for the next place to come and retire to. And along the way came a lot of questions, emails, text messages, phone messages, social media comments, private messages through social media, and I'm thankful for all of it, so keep it coming. Today, I want to specifically address perfect retirement home size, and along with that is really just the whole concept of downsizing. Hot Springs Village, Arkansas is a retirement community, not in the technical sense that if you're under 55, you can't live here. Not in the sense that even if you are over 55, you can't have children who live with you. You can't be younger than that. No, it's not that kind of a retirement community, but demographically, Hot Springs Village is a retirement community. And it is made up of people of all ages, but most of us are older folks. I call it the Encore chapter because I plagiarized that from an organization out of New York City called encore.org. These are people that are focused on the second half of your life. And I'm kind of fascinated because I'm old. I'm fascinated with that whole concept of how we choose to live our lives as we get to this phase. So our demographic for this show largely are people that are 62 to whatever age, planning to retire, already retired. But as we have conversations with folks, particularly about houses here inside the village, One of the big questions that comes up is about the footprint, the house size, because many of us, for the last 20 years or so, as we were raising our family, we were trying to get in the biggest house that we could afford. If we had a number of kids, we needed bedrooms, we needed square footage, and that was important to us. And now that we're empty nesters, it's not as important. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they came here to the village, and they bought a bigger home. They had grand ideas. This is their story, and the way that they tell it. They had grand ideas of being in this place, and man, the family's going to want to come, and we're going to have a lot of get-togethers. The kids, some of the kids are spread out, but some of the kids aren't all that far away over in Texas, and I think some in Louisiana. And they thought, we will be a gathering place, and so we're gonna need room. Well, it turns out that isn't how it played out. Everybody comes once, maybe twice a year, and they've got a big family. Otherwise, they find themselves in this house where, other than about 2 weeks out of every year, it's just the two of them. And now they struggle because it's just, well, as they say, it's just too much house for the two of us. The upkeep, the expense, they just find it unnecessary. So that brings up my first point, and I guess my first suggestion for something for you to think about as you're considering your own retirement, hopefully here to Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. Think about the reality of your life. It's really common for a lot of us to think about and fantasize about what life will be like when we get to this age. I remember running across a fella who, I asked him what he was going to do. He said that he was going to be retiring in a few months. This was a number of years ago. And I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, I'm going to build out just a killer woodworking shop. And I said, I had no idea that you were a woodworker. And he said, oh, I'm not. I said, well, have you ever worked with wood? He said, no, but I've kind of always wanted to. And so he was planning to have this pretty large space and make an investment in a lot of equipment, and yet he didn't work with wood. I remember going home, and I remember sitting and thinking, if you've spent your life not doing it, this doesn't apply to everything, but it certainly applied to this situation. Here's a guy that in his spare time, he didn't spend his spare time working with wood. Completely okay. It's his life. He can do with it what he wants. But now he had this fantasy that in retirement, he would begin to do something that really he had not had enough interest to do ever before. I don't know how that story worked out. I would surmise that he probably made the investment, knowing him. He probably made the investment, and he probably didn't stick with it. And we hear all these kinds of stories. Consider your present reality. Let me use myself as an example. When we stumbled onto this house, and Rick Marshall, shout out to sponsor of our show, Trademark HSV Real Estate. Rick and Liz, his wife, they kind of did a video tour for us. We were in Texas. We hadn't even seen the house. And he got a floor plan. He got the layout of the house. And as I looked at the layout of the house, I realized there were so many things about this house that fit us to a T. But I could see that it might not be suitable for everybody. I do a lot of remote work. It's online. It's by way of video conferencing. I also do a lot of podcasting, which I've done for 27 years. So I have had a place since 1997 that I have dubbed the Yellow Studio. The chairs are yellow, my curtains are yellow. In Texas, the original Yellow Studio, all the walls were painted this mustard yellow. I loved it. It was just bright and airy, and it just good vibe for me. Did you know that yellow is the first color the human eye sees? True. It's true. So there's that. Well, we looked at the plans, and I'm sitting in a room that is an appendage off of our master bedroom. This is a 12 by 12 room with no door, no walls, and then our master bedroom is on the other side of this white curtain behind me. And it's a big master bedroom. And I looked at it and I thought, I could see that most people would look at that and think, well, what would we do with that? Well, for us, it was perfect. It's on this side of the house, the back side of the house, on the front side of the house where the other two bedrooms are. It's a 3-bedroom house. My wife, who loves to sew, she was going to have her sewing room. So we're on opposite sides of the house, which for me is great because it's quiet. I can close the bedroom door and it's all good. And she can sew away and we don't bother each other. But I could see that for some people, it so wouldn't be the right thing. Now, our house has tall ceilings, which makes it feel larger. We have a really nice, called the great room, a den, we used to call them, and a big open kitchen, and it's all one big area. We could entertain comfortably, but we don't. We never have. We have people over. It's not like we're inhospitable, but we're not that couple that's having some shindig, every couple of weeks or so. That's never been who we are. So I think it starts with us knowing who we are. Who are we right now, and what do we most love to do? Sure, I'm all for having fantasies and imaginations about what could be and what we could do. And I would absolutely encourage anybody, I would cheerlead anybody, pursue whatever dreams that you've got as you approach retirement age and as you're planning for it. But we need to think about layout and the size of our house and be practical about what is most likely going to be the way we're going to live our life. The odds are, now Rhonda and I have been married 47 years, the odds are the way that we've lived 40 some odd years before, that's probably pretty much going to be how we're going to live next year too. I know it sounds boring, but you and I both know that it's true. So think about that. The room that you need and the storage that you need, and storage is a big, big component in all this, which really leads to the whole thing of this downsizing kind of a notion. People begin, I think, to think about downsizing probably in their 50s or 60s, because that's probably when most of us kind of hit that empty nester stage where the kids have grown up, they've moved off, they've finished their college career or whatever, and they're kind of out on their own, and now here we are. For the first time since we were newlyweds, we find ourselves being empty nesters, and now we realize we've got all this stuff. Now, if you're like us, you realize, an awful lot of this stuff belongs to the kids. Why have we got this stuff? Why aren't we stuck with this stuff? I can tell you, we're also getting to that age where we have aging parents, and we're going to do some shows about that too, because that is a big elephant in the room that I hear from a lot of you who are facing health situations with aging parents, because some of you've got a father-in-law or a mother-in-law, and you're thinking about your next move being Hot Springs Village, and you're going to bring them with you. So a topic well worth considering. But we think about being empty nesters, and I think that probably provokes us to think about, why have we got this big house with this many bedrooms that we don't need, and we keep the doors closed, and we never do go to that area of the house. It is one reason that we get so much feedback from people who come to the village or who look at houses online here in the village and find an awful lot of houses that are in that 1,500 to 2,000 square foot range. And we get a lot of feedback from you looking at that. Keep in mind, again, it's the demographic. I read an article not long ago, I can't remember where, I would tell you, that said probably the ideal home size for most Americans, including families, is probably 1,500 square feet. And it made me think about my childhood and the houses that I grew up in. I don't know about you, but I grew up in what was a very middle class kind of a family and neighborhood. And as an adult, I've lived in houses that were way bigger than any house I ever grew up in. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but it kind of is what it is. So downsizing, as you plan for your retirement, what are some things that maybe you ought to think about? I will tell you that one of my number one regrets when I downsized was not doing it sooner. I made a vow that I was going to get rid of, I just looked at the 80-20 rule and I thought, I'm going to get rid of 80% of everything I've got. I mean, everything. Well, I ended up going beyond that. I ended up probably getting rid of 90% of everything that I had. And it was liberating. I mean, it honestly, it turned into a game of, I wonder how much I can get rid of, kind of a thing. I regretted not doing it sooner. I regretted that I didn't have an emotional attachment. I was not a hoarder or anything like that. I just had stuff. And I had stuff that didn't serve me well. For me, the barometer was high utility. Does this thing provide me high utility? And for me, the barometer was, how often do I use it? If I don't use it I've got on fleece, I've been wearing flannel, I got beanies. Okay, well, I'm not gonna wear this in the middle of the summer. But come next fall, I'm gonna dig it back out. So I don't want to go buy new flannel shirts every fall. I don't want to go buy new fleece every winter. I don't want to buy new beanies every winter. So yeah, I touch them. I touch them annually. And I touch them a lot annually. There are other things that, okay, maybe I don't touch as often, and some things that I'm going to touch more than that. So for me, that was the barometer. The other things, like some of these little things that you see behind me here inside the Yellow Studio, and some of the pictures and things are just things that they're just kind of a muse. They're a real muse for me. I look at them and they garner some kind of emotion that I enjoy, that I like, and they don't take up a lot of space. So I don't have a whole bunch of them, but I got enough of them around. I kind of enjoy them. I would say, secondly, be real clear in your goals. Think about why you want to do it. And for me, goals also meant kind of figuring out the approach. Like I said, for me, the approach was high utility. You hear a lot of people in the decluttering world talk about, well, figure out whether it brings you joy. That for me just didn't work. It wasn't, that's just not something I could really relate to. I couldn't pick up something and go, okay, do you bring me joy or not? I mean, utility was just a more practical approach for me, and that fit my personality. I'm not going to look at a pair of socks and think, do you bring me joy? No, I'm going to think, are you high utility? Do I enjoy wearing you? I had shoes, and I'm like, I didn't even know I had those shoes, and I'm not a shoe hound, but I had shoes, and I'm like, I don't even remember buying these shoes, but I don't wear them. And so I put them on. I go, okay, yeah, it's coming back to me now. Yeah, they kind of look good, but they don't feel so good. They're not real comfortable. I got a wide foot. And so I started jettisoning those kinds of things. So for me, utility. Now that may not work for you. It may be something other than utility. But whatever that is, define your goals based on whatever that may be. People will recommend for us to create this inventory of our belongings, and I'm sure for insurance purposes, and Ike Eisenhower, State Farm, another shout out to one of our great sponsors, I'm sure Ike would tell you, walk around your house and video, and especially the stuff that's expensive, maybe even document that even a little more closely. Super great advice, and I would highly suggest that you do that. But other people talk about inventorying everything. I didn't do that. Is that a good practice? I have friends that are spreadsheet junkies, much more so than I am, and they just love to do that. I didn't do that, but to each his own. To think about your living space, and I kind of started with this one, is a really important thing. As we were decluttering and downsizing our possessions, in the house that we had been living in for over 20 years in Texas, we knew we weren't gonna, we knew we were not going to exist in a house that big ever again. So we had to think about it in those terms. And you have to think about how many sets of dishes do two people really need? I mean, do we really need 4 sets of dishes that have 8 place settings each? No, you don't. How much silverware do you need? How many of these appliances sitting on your kitchen counter do you use regularly and do you need? We just use that practical approach. Again, you may decide to do something a little bit different, but we were thinking in terms of, we weren't measuring the living space because this was before we ever even had eyes on this house where we are. And we split our time between here and Texas. But we don't have big footprints anywhere we are. This is our biggest footprint at about 2,200 square feet, which for here in the village is a decent sized house. It's 3 bedroom, 2 bath. Like I said, it's a big open area for dining and for the great room and for the kitchen. It just suits us. It just suits us really, really well. You do need to think about your space. You do need to think about cabinet space and storage space and garage space and all that. We've got friends who've got multiple boats. Okay, well, where are you going to put your boat? We've got friends who keep a boat in the garage. We've got other friends and they've got a boat slip at one of the marinas here inside the village. We've got others who they keep their boat in storage, paid storage in the winter months, and drag it out and keep it on a lake, either at a boat dock or a slip in season. So we got to think about a home for all this stuff. Organization. I don't know that anybody can overemphasize organization enough. And again, how you choose to organize stuff is really up to you. The big thing that I had to get my head wrapped around was my library, my books. I had over 3,000 books, and I'm like, I am not keeping all these. There's just no way. And I ended up getting rid of probably 90% of those, donating them to a local library there in Dallas-Fort Worth, and was real glad that I did. But organizing the belongings for me was frankly pretty easy. I was organizing clothes. I was organizing equipment and stuff that I needed for work, and those things that I put in boxes dubbed the Yellow Studio. So that stuff is here. There was some other stuff that was, okay, keepsakes, things that I didn't want to throw away, but things that I knew I'm not going to, they don't have high utility, but they've got high sentimental value. And organizing those things was, okay, how much of that stuff? And for those of us that are older, if you're sentimental like me, you may have more of that stuff than you realize until you start going through it. And it's like, okay, well, how much of that stuff do you really need to keep? Stuff that you know you haven't looked at it in years, and it may be years more before you look at it again. So you need to start organizing things. For me, the best way that we approach that, and you've heard this before, so there's nothing novel or new about it, it was, am I going to keep it? Am I going to sell it? Or donate it? Am I just going to throw it away? True story. There was a whole lot of stuff we were just going to throw away. And a friend suggested just post something on Facebook Marketplace and just basically do a free-for-all. Just get it all out on your, we had a rear entry garage, thankfully. So just pull it all out, get it, spread it out in the garage and just let people just come and take it. And I thought, that's crazy. He said, I promise you, you'll get rid of, if you don't get rid of all of it, you'll get rid of almost all of it. Man, live early in the morning, they lined up and people hauled away. I had a big pile of, it literally was trash. It was just trash. And I had kind of had it over in kind of a corner by itself. And it was a pretty good sized pile. I was just planning to haul it off, throw it away. They went through that. I mean, this thing had, it just had, there were big pieces of plastic. There were broken down boxes. There was just junk. And they rifled through that pile. It was unbelievable what people hauled away. I was quite pleased. I was quite pleased that we got rid of, I would say 80%, maybe 85% of all of the stuff that we were just going to pitch it. People came and hauled it away. So you need to think about that stuff. You know, hey, one man's ceiling is another man's floor. So start the decluttering. Just get after it. You're going to be tempted to go through everything, and I'm not going to discourage you from going through everything. I think there's something to going through everything. I kind of sort of did. Number one, I wanted to know what it is. And I didn't want to look at something and think, I can't believe I got rid of that. As opposed to, I put my hands on it, I looked at it, I thought about it for a short period or for a long period and decided I'm getting rid of that. Now it was a conscious decision. So now if it showed up missing, I'm going to be like, yep, I remember throwing that away, or I remember giving that away, or selling that, or whatever. So I did look at, I won't say I looked at everything, but I looked at most everything. For me, that worked. The storage solutions in your new home, we paid a little bit of money, and we had some folks build us. I need to take a picture of this and put it in the show notes. It's these 27-gallon bins that you can buy that have a lid on them. We bought ours at Sam's. They're 27-gallon, so they hold a lot. You can get 40-gallon ones. We don't have those. Those are massive. They were just too big to handle. So we got 20, yeah, there's 20 of these. 20 of these that fit in a rack that we had custom made for these bins. You put the lid on them, you slide them in, and you put a label on the end, and the footprint is really small. The footprint is 4 across and 5 up. I could have that backwards. It could be 5 across and 4 up, but it's 20. You can store an awful lot of stuff in 20 27-gallon bins. So for us, that was a great solution. We've got an oversized garage, so we had plenty of space there. We don't have a real shortage of space here in the house, but you know, when you move from a bigger home to a house that's under 2,200 square feet, you're going to give up some storage, some closet spaces and that sort of stuff. Now we've got 2 large walk-in closets, and so we really didn't have a shortage of storage. I think most everybody feels like they probably do. And based on paid storage facilities that are around here and everywhere, and the number of dollars that people confess to me that they spend every month to store stuff that they never do check on and look at, some people are spending hundreds of dollars a month. I would not do that. But you do you. Storage solutions. People talk about having support for their efforts, and I don't know, I didn't lean on any experts. If you need an expert, certainly do that. I do know that there are people who have a much stronger emotional attachment, and it's just hard. There are organization experts. There are people who can help us work through whatever emotions we may have tied to our possessions. That was not something that Rhonda and I had as a challenge, but I'm completely compassionate for people who do, and I would say give it a go. It's just so liberating. Lastly, all these advantages. Well, number one, first and foremost, I think is just the mental stress and strain and worry that I know comes with age as we fret about things. My father's 101, and my mom passed away last year. She was just shy of 94. And as we get older, having watched them and watched other people grow older, we can get obsessed about certain things at certain times. My dad got a little bit obsessed about a little bit of money, and he wanted to put a CD in my sister's name and a CD in my name, and he was kind of like a dog on a bone about it. And we finally sat him down and talked with him and said, listen, no, the better solution is it's your money, you keep it. We don't need it or want it. So let's just put this in a CD, put this in something that's safe, that you're comfortable with, and let well enough be. But as we get older, I can sense it in myself, and hopefully you'll be able to sense it as well. We can be that way. We can be a little bit obsessive. We can be a little bit dog on a bone about certain things. And I think the more mindful we are about those things that may trigger us, those things that we may stress about, my point is to eliminate that, to reduce that as much as we possibly can, is an enormous emotional and mental load off, as opposed to fretting about all of the stuff. I have conversations all the time with people who are in our demographic, and we're trying to care for our aging parents. And we look at all of their stuff and we're thinking, what are we going to do? So Rhonda and I got really highly motivated, as that was part of our life, in looking at other people, including my parents, grow older, to think, okay, let's get ahead of that. Let's just go ahead and get ahead of that. Hopefully, we have a few decades left. Don't know. None of us do. But let's get ahead of that, and let's architect our own growing older. So there's a big value in that, just the mental load and the stress and the worry about our stuff, and where is our stuff, and why can't I find my stuff? And it's just enormously refreshing for that. The other real practical thing, number two, which is frankly for a lot of us, I think number one, and that's just the financial burden. The financial burden of taking care of a lot of stuff, acquiring more stuff, having a house with a big footprint, which carries with it higher cost, higher insurance, higher taxes, higher utility bills, all of that, higher maintenance. For many of us at this stage of life, we want simple. We want simple. And I think for an awful lot of us, we're so far past that point of trying to impress anybody and trying to dazzle anybody and trying to show anything off. We just don't care. We just don't care anymore. You know, we kind of hopefully get settled, and we want what we want. We kind of know what we want, and you lean into it. I tell coaching clients all the time, listen, be the best you that you can be, but man, be you. Just be you. And at this stage of life, we can be comfortable in who we are, hopefully, and hopefully we're good people and we're trying to do the right thing. And just lean into it. Just lean into it. I hear from a lot of you, and I'd love to hear more from you about your journey and what's going on with you and how you're approaching it. But as many of you who report to me that you have planned and are planning a trip to Hot Springs Village, check it out and see if it's your cup of tea. As you look at houses, as you think about what you're going to see when you look out the back door and when you look out the front door, when you sit on your back porch or you sit on your front porch, what are you looking at? The kind of space that you occupy. Do you have a lot of people over now? Are you likely going to have a lot of people over when you get here? And you may, and that's cool. Or you may be like so many of us, like me and Rhonda. She stays in her sewing room. I stay here in the yellow studio, and we spend a lot of time in these spaces. She's looking out front windows at some woods across the street. I'm looking out my back windows right here and I'm looking at woods, and it's pretty stinking great, and we love it. Figure out what you love, and figure out what makes you happy, and figure out what most satisfies you, and what checks whatever boxes you have. But have boxes that you need to check, and then get busy checking them off, and let all the rest of it, somebody else can worry about it. Randy Cantrell, HotSpringsVillageInsideOut.com. That's the website. Thank you for clicking play. I hope that we're providing some useful information to help you navigate this whole pre-retirement and even post-retirement. And I hope Hot Springs Village, Arkansas, checks your boxes. Till next time, see ya.
Thanks for watching Hot Springs Village Inside Out. You'll find all our episodes at HotSpringsVillageInsideOut.com or on YouTube.